So it's actually 30 degrees now inside the greenhouse. It's the first time this year that the window was opened, so we know that there's a little bit of warmth in the air. It's now the beginning of March and things are starting to come up in the garden. All the spring bulbs have now finally pushed through the ground. Well, as you know, Tony and myself last weekend cleared a large bamboo out of the garden, which is against the wall over in that area. And that has given us a lovely big space to be able to put some more plants. So let's take you back to Sunday, where I picked up a few plants in the local B&M. So we popped down on Sunday, down to our local B&M in Neath, and what I'm looking for is some grasses just to finish off my new border, and I managed to find some. They also had some lovely Fatsia japonicas, and these ones are only £6.50. But if I just spin around, just look at the size on these ones here, there's not that much difference, and these ones are £25. But the littler ones for £6.50 are a total bargain. So if you are looking for some ordinary Fatsia japonica, which will soon grow up to be large plants, then your local B&M is the place to go. So back to today in the garden, and it's absolutely wonderful to see a little bit of sunshine. So I bet you're all wondering, what did I buy in B&M? And here they are. So first of all, I've got this lovely Nandina. Now you know that I love a Nandina in the garden, and this is a Nandina Obsessed. And it's quite a compact variety. And that one there is an Akuba. This is a lovely golden colour on this one. And it's an Akuba Marmarata. Now I did buy a Mr. Gold Strike a few weeks ago, and I've planted that in the garden, and they do look very similar. So maybe they're the same plant, who knows. But lovely colours on that. Another fern, so I'm not sure if this fern is an evergreen fern or deciduous fern, but it doesn't matter. £6.50. It's looking lovely and healthy. At the back there, I've got another grass, which is a Lomandra White Sands, and I've got 2 or 3 of these already in the garden, and I know they grow to a lovely size. And finally, 3 variegated grasses, and these are Carex Evergold, £6.50 each. And again, something that I have had before. They're in the garden at the moment, and they do brighten up the areas because they're variegated, so something a little bit different. And they grow to be a lovely size. So all I got to do now is to get these lovely plants into the garden. So let's have a little wander down to the area where I dug out the bamboo last week, or where we dug out the bamboo, I should say. So I've got all of this area which I can fill up with some plants, and I've already popped in a rhododendron that was looking for a forever home. But there's plenty of space here, and over the other side of the pathway I've got a lovely space there also. So I can pop something into there. So I've popped in some of the plants now, and I realised when I was looking at the border that the rhododendron that I planted in last week was back to front. So every plant has got a good side and a not so good side, and I had it facing the other way. So I've just turned that around and moved it slightly forward in the border. So I'm just raking in the earth now, just to get it as level as I can. And then I'm just going to pop in some grasses, just to finish this area off a little bit. So the question is then, when do I put these grasses? Maybe one there, one there, one there maybe. That's quite nice there. I'm still missing something from that area. So what about a pink marble? I like that. And when that fills out behind, lovely. So those two akubas, I think, need to be swapped over, because that colour, the brighter one, looks a little bit too garish next to that one. Yes, let's swap them around. So that one needs to go over there, and this one over to there. That's better already. And I think it's all about trying to get the colours to work together. I think if I put the bright one at the back here next to the pink marble, I think your eye will automatically be drawn towards the brightness and you'll miss this lovely plant there. Right, let's get some gloves on and get these into the ground. Gloves on. Let's get in amongst the plants. And let's start popping some of these in. And this pink marble, I've just moved this from another part of the garden, but I think it'll look quite nice here. And I've got a few of these already, and I love a photinia in the garden. Again, easy to grow, and they look good all year round. So just make sure I've got this planting hole big enough. And then I'll just come round to the front of the border see that I've got it in the right position. Keep going. And it's lovely to feel the spring sunshine. So get that in the right position. And then backfill it. Lovely. Right, let's get the first of this grass in. Another Carex. Everything is in now, and I'm just going to give it all a good water, settle everything in, and then I'm going to go in, have a well-deserved cup of coffee, and then I'll come back out and show you exactly what I've planted. So I've still got a few gaps in the garden, but all of these now should grow throughout the season, just to fill up some space. And that looks a lot better than when it was the bamboo there. So let's take a walk now down the garden, just to have a look and see how the new plants are fitting into the area. So looking now up the garden path, you can see that we've got the Schefflera Taiwaniana, and that was already here. And behind that is a large Fatsia japonica. So let's make a start on what I've put in today. So I found a little Mahonia soft caress from another part of the garden, and also Fertinia pink marble. Now I love the colours in there, so I've swapped over the Nandina that was in front of that, because that was a yellow one, but that now is the Nandina Obsessed, and that's going to come out with some lovely pink to red foliage, and I thought that that colour would just be picked up in the pink marble. Behind that is the Akuba, and since I turned around that rhododendron, I think that's looking a lot better now in the planting space. So also behind that is a Carré Rouge, and just going to the right hand side now, we've got the new Akuba. Lovely colouring on that, and I've picked the colour of that up with this Nandina. So we've got the two yellow looking plants this side, and then over the other side of the rhododendron we've got the pinks and the reds, just tying the garden together there. So at the very front I've got a few heucheras. They were already there, and I've just planted two of the grasses, and I've taken this lovely little plant from another area of the garden. I can't remember the name of it, but I'll pop it up on the screen. And in its place I've just planted another one of those grasses there that I bought. But I really love the delicate foliage on that plant, and that's excellent as a ground cover. So I'm really liking this area of the garden now, and I think it looks a lot better than it did when it had the bamboo there. because it was just taking up so much space. So the pink marble was here, and I've just planted in its place now another Nandina, and maybe out to the sunshine you can see now how that border is looking. And the space that I had on the opposite side of the border, I've now planted that white sands grass. Now in the centre of the garden, I've also got some more of these variegated grasses, and these haven't been planted here very long, but you can see now how they've filled out. And in that space there, I've just planted a euonymus. So looking now in front of the greenhouse, you can see that my Soberius is really pushing out new growth, and it's lovely to see. And also this is where I've got my roses, so it's an ideal time now, if you haven't done so already, to trim back the roses, as there's plenty of new growth coming on these, and also an excellent time to start thinking about feeding the roses, if you haven't done so already. And just look at that growth now coming on there, and some lovely daffodils too in the garden. So I've had my rose feed now for quite a while, and this is for rose and shrubs, and all I do is just move away any of the mulch from the roses base because they don't like it, and then just give it a sprinkle of feed around the bottom, and this is like pellets, and then just scratch that in to the surface, and when it rains now it'll give that rose some lovely nutrients. So I've got 3 roses in the garden, not very many, and I'm not an expert on roses by any means, but I do try. And just to prove that I too have plant casualties, just look at the state of that, and that is a Morellii banana, and that's been overwintering in my house. Now for some reason this is a plant that I just cannot overwinter. I've tried all different ways. I've tried leaving it in the compost, keeping it dry, trying to keep them alive by watering, and also dry storing, but I just don't get any luck whatsoever, and it's completely rotted through. So that's definitely one for the compost bin. So it's also an ideal time just to do a little bit of tidying up and a little bit of cutting back of the old foliage. And just in front of the hellebores there, you'll see that there is a Verbena bonariensis, and all I'm going to do with that is just to take off all the old stems, and I've got 2 of these in the garden, so time now to trim those away. So I've got my secateurs at the ready, and you may be able to see that in there, if I move these grasses out the way, there's some new shoots coming. So what you want to do is get your secateurs and just cut down as low as you can, not disturbing too much of the new growth. And it's strange to think that in a few months' time this plant will put on so much growth. So it's only the 2nd year for this plant, so it's the first time that I've cut it back. And it's pulled through okay. And I'm so happy about that. So I'm hoping for a good bit of growth on it this year. So cut all that old growth off. I'm hoping now that the temperatures will start to rise. And look at that in there now, a whole new plant. Lovely. Let's hope I'll get about 6 foot of growth out of that this year. And it's so exciting to see the plants are starting to grow now in the garden, and it certainly won't be long till spring is definitely here. So let's hope these temperatures will stay. And I've also noticed today that we've got some lovely buds coming on the plum tree. And I've taken the decision this year not to prune them. I've got 2 plum trees in the garden. But just look at that. Full of new buds. And I've also just trimmed back the old foliage of this plant here, ready for this season's growth. And that's looking a lot tidier now. So it's been beautiful weather today in the garden, and it's almost that time now where it's time to start feeding the plants again. And I normally do that sort of at the end of March, beginning of April. And that's when I get out the chicken manure pellets and just pop them all around the palms. They absolutely love the chicken manure pellets. Makes the garden a little bit smelly, but it does the job for growth. Just a word of warning, don't use the pellets around any ericaceous plants such as rhododendrons or the camellias, as they don't like them. But also I use liquid seaweed in the water that I use in the garden, and I use that in abundance throughout the season, and that's what gives us the growth. The garden now is going into its 5th year, and it's really hard to believe that 5 years ago this garden was just lawn. So I am hoping that this weather is going to be starting to stay for a little bit longer, and hopefully if the weather does stay drier, it'll be time soon to put up the new arbour in the garden. It's all ready, it's all here, it's just waiting for the weather to improve. I've got a bit of cleaning up first that I want to get done, a little bit of jet washing of the seating area, but after that then that arbour will be getting built. So I hope you've enjoyed watching. Please like, comment and subscribe if you haven't already, as it really helps the channel to grow, and it's completely free. And until next time, I'll see you soon. Bye for now.